In the shimmering heat of a Southern California summer, an unseen menace began to cast a long, cold shadow over the city of angels. The mid-1980s were a time of relative optimism, but beneath the veneer of sunshine and surf, a terrifying darkness was brewing. Homes that once felt like sanctuaries became potential hunting grounds. A new kind of fear, primal and pervasive, began to settle in the hearts of residents, especially as night fell. The very act of sleeping became an act of profound vulnerability, as a predator moved silently through the unsuspecting suburbs, leaving terror in his wake. What started as isolated incidents of home invasion and burglary soon escalated into something far more sinister. The pattern was disturbing, seemingly random attacks, brutal violence, and no clear motive beyond destruction. Across Los Angeles County, then venturing into Orange County and even north to San Francisco, the shadow of a lone assailant grew. The sheer randomness of the attacks amplified the terror, as no demographic seemed safe, no neighborhood immune. It was a period when the nightly news became a horrifying chronicle, painting a grim picture of a city under siege by an unknown entity, a harbinger of pure malice. Residents began to adapt their lives in drastic ways. Windows were locked, sometimes nailed shut, even on the hottest nights. Alarm systems, once a luxury, became a necessity. The comforting darkness of night transformed into a source of acute anxiety. People slept with baseball bats, loaded firearms, or even golf clubs by their bedsides. Neighbors formed watch groups, patrolling their streets, their eyes scanning for any suspicious movement. The sense of community, paradoxically, was forged in fear, as people banded together to protect what they held most dear, a collective effort against an unseen enemy. This was not just crime, it was psychological warfare on an entire populace. The media, desperate to put a name to the mounting dread, eventually dubbed the assailant the Night Stalker. This moniker, chilling in its simplicity, perfectly encapsulated the terror of a predator who operated under the cloak of darkness. Richard Ramirez, a name soon to be infamous, was this shadow figure. His methods were brutal, his victims varied, and his footprint seemed to appear and vanish like a ghost. He stalked silently, striking with shocking speed and ferocity, leaving behind not just physical wounds but deep psychological scars on the survivors and the community at large. The name became synonymous with pure evil. Ricardo Leyva Muñoz Ramirez was born in El Paso, Texas, in 1960. His early life was marked by instability and a troubled home environment. Growing up in a large family, he often felt overlooked. While no single factor fully explains the monstrous acts of a serial killer, insights into Ramirez's childhood paint a picture of burgeoning darkness. Reports suggest a fascination with violence from a young age, influenced by disturbing events and relationships within his family. These formative years, steeped in a climate of dysfunction and exposure to brutality, laid a chilling groundwork for the horrors that would later unfold under the California moonlight, shaping a mind twisted towards malevolence. A particularly significant influence on young Richard was his older cousin, Miguel Ramirez, a Green Beret who had served in Vietnam. Miguel would regale Richard with graphic tales of torture and murder, even showing him explicit photographs. This exposure to extreme violence, glorified by a figure of authority and admiration, normalized brutality for the impressionable boy. Miguel was also known for his own violent tendencies, even committing murder in front of Richard when he was just 13. This horrifying event, coupled with the constant stream of grim stories, deeply scarred Ramirez, desensitizing him and undoubtedly warping his perception of human life and suffering, pushing him further down a dark path. As Ramirez entered adolescence, his behavior grew increasingly erratic and criminal. He struggled in school, dropped out, and began experimenting with drugs. Marijuana, PCP, and eventually cocaine became central to his life, further eroding his grip on reality and fueling paranoid delusions. Petty crimes like shoplifting and car theft escalated. His escalating drug use and involvement in small-time criminal activities marked a clear descent into a life outside societal norms. This period was a prelude, a rehearsal of defiance against authority and a growing disregard for consequences, shaping the future perpetrator of unspeakable acts, honing his skills for infiltration and evasion, and deepening his disconnect from humanity. In the early 1980s, Richard Ramirez left El Paso, drawn by the allure and anonymity of Los Angeles. He bounced between various menial jobs and transient living situations, often staying in cheap motels or sleeping rough. The sprawling metropolis offered him the perfect cover, a place where he could disappear into the urban fabric, his past unscrutinized, his true nature concealed. This move represented a critical turning point, providing the freedom and opportunity for his darker impulses to fully manifest without the constraints of his familiar, though troubled, hometown. It was here, amidst the vibrant yet indifferent landscape of Southern California, that the transformation from troubled youth to terrifying predator would be completed, hidden in plain sight. Ramirez's criminal activities in Los Angeles initially consisted of burglaries and petty theft, but his violence soon escalated. His first known murder occurred in April 1984, the brutal killing of a 79-year-old woman. However, police initially failed to connect this isolated incident to a broader pattern, viewing it as a standalone crime. The true horror would begin in earnest in March 1985, when his attacks became more frequent, more brazen, and undeniably linked by a terrifying modus operandi. These initial acts were the precursors, the testing of boundaries, as he refined his methods and indulged his escalating violent fantasies, laying the groundwork for the reign of terror that was about to unfold. The spring and summer of 1985 saw an alarming surge in violent home invasions. Ramirez began to escalate from burglary to sexual assault and murder. His targets were diverse: men, women, and children, ranging in age from 6 to 83. He used a variety of weapons, guns, knives, hammers, demonstrating a chilling adaptability and indifference to the suffering he inflicted. The attacks often began with a quiet entry into homes through unlocked windows or doors, shattering the illusion of safety. This escalation wasn't merely about crime, it was a progression of cruelty, each act more depraved than the last, indicating a mind fully committed to inflicting maximum terror and pain. Ramirez's method of operation was terrifyingly simple yet effective. He favored entering homes in the dead of night, typically through unlocked doors or open windows, often in single-story houses. Once inside, he would stalk through the home, surprising sleeping residents. The attacks were characterized by extreme brutality, often involving beatings, shootings, stabbings, and sexual assault. He showed no mercy, often tying up victims before inflicting further violence. The sheer audacity and randomness of his chosen targets meant that every home in Southern California became a potential site for his next atrocity. His ability to vanish into the night after each crime only added to his myth, making him seem almost supernatural. A chilling aspect of Ramirez's crimes was the frequent presence of satanic symbolism. He would sometimes leave pentagrams drawn on walls, or force victims to swear allegiance to Satan. He himself was a fervent follower of Satanism, believing it gave him power and protection. These symbols weren't just random acts of vandalism, they were a deliberate, taunting signature, meant to terrorize and perhaps to fulfill his own dark spiritual beliefs. This added a terrifying, cult-like dimension to the crimes, making them seem even more incomprehensible and demonic. The symbols were a declaration, a twisted mark of ownership on his victims and the scenes of his atrocities, intensifying the public's horror and fascination. One of the most terrifying elements of the Night Stalker's reign was the apparent randomness of his victims. Unlike many serial killers who target specific demographics, Ramirez attacked indiscriminately. Old and young, rich and poor, male and female, anyone could be a target. This lack of discernible pattern meant that no one felt truly safe, turning every night into a lottery of survival. It created a pervasive, generalized anxiety that gripped entire communities. The randomness was a weapon in itself, designed to maximize fear and make prediction impossible, leaving both law enforcement and the public utterly bewildered by his unpredictable and brutal choices, enhancing the perception of a ubiquitous threat. The human cost of Ramirez's spree was immeasurable. Take the case of Dale Okazaki, a 34-year-old woman, found shot to death in her Rosemead home in March 1985. Her murder was one of the earliest to be definitively linked to the Night Stalker. Days later, Celia New, a 30-year-old woman, was also murdered in her Monterey Park home, shot twice. These were ordinary people leading ordinary lives, whose existences were cruelly extinguished by a brutal intruder. Their stories represent just the beginning of a tragic list, each name a person whose life was stolen, leaving behind heartbroken families and a community in shock, grappling with the senseless violence that had invaded their peace. The terror continued, with incidents like the single bullet fired through a window in Glendale, wounding a young boy, to the brutal double murder of a couple in their sleep in Arcadia. Max and Lela Needing, both over 60, were shot and bludgeoned in their own bed, their sanctuary violated in the most horrific way. Ramirez's violence was indiscriminate, crossing racial, economic, and age boundaries. These weren't just statistics, they were individuals with families, friends, and futures irrevocably stolen. Each attack reinforced the chilling reality that no one was safe, and the perpetrator's heartlessness knew no bounds, leaving an indelible mark of trauma on the fabric of society. Initially, police departments across various jurisdictions struggled to connect the disparate crimes. Los Angeles County alone has numerous independent police forces, and communication was not as streamlined as it is today. Attacks were reported in different cities, making it challenging to identify a single perpetrator. Each crime, initially investigated in isolation, appeared to be a separate incident of burglary, assault, or murder. This fragmentation allowed Ramirez to continue his rampage for months, his crimes growing bolder and more frequent as law enforcement grappled with the enormity and scattered nature of the unfolding crisis. It was a race against time, but the pieces of the puzzle were too spread out. As the body count mounted and the similarities in the crimes became undeniable, law enforcement agencies finally recognized they were dealing with a single, highly dangerous individual. A multi-agency task force was formed, bringing together detectives from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and the Los Angeles Police Department. This collaboration was crucial, allowing investigators to pool resources, share intelligence, and build a comprehensive profile of the assailant. They began meticulously sifting through evidence, looking for patterns in entry points, victim types, and methods of violence, desperately trying to piece together the identity of the monster terrorizing their city, hoping for a single breakthrough. The burgeoning crime spree quickly became a national news story, fueling intense media coverage. Local newspapers ran daily headlines, detailing each new attack with chilling specificity. Television news segments led with updates on the Night Stalker, broadcasting the fear directly into millions of homes. While the media played a vital role in informing the public and, eventually, in his capture, the sensationalism also heightened the widespread panic. Every new detail, every new horror, was magnified, creating a palpable sense of dread that permeated daily life. The public was hungry for information, but the constant stream of grim news only fed the collective anxiety, making the monster seem larger than life. The Night Stalker's targets frequently included quiet, middle-class suburban neighborhoods, places typically considered safe and idyllic. This shattered the illusion of suburban tranquility, proving that wealth or location offered no immunity. The fear infiltrated every aspect of suburban life. Children were kept indoors, playdates were canceled, and evening strolls became unthinkable. Parents stayed awake, guarding their families, while teenagers looked for ways to secure their homes. The image of the peaceful suburban home, once a symbol of security, was forever tainted, becoming a stark reminder of vulnerability. The very essence of comfort and safety was stripped away, replaced by an unsettling, ever-present apprehension. In response to the unprecedented terror, the home security industry experienced an explosive boom. Sales of deadbolt locks, window bars, and alarm systems skyrocketed. Hardware stores couldn't keep inventory on their shelves, as homeowners frantically bought anything that promised an extra layer of protection. Manufacturers worked overtime to meet demand, and local contractors specialized in reinforcing homes. This widespread shift in consumer behavior fundamentally altered the landscape of residential security in Southern California, and eventually, across the nation. What was once a niche market became an essential service, a testament to the profound psychological impact of one man's reign of terror on an entire society's sense of safety. During his spree, Ramirez reportedly reveled in the fear he created. Fueled by drug use and his warped satanic beliefs, he saw himself as untouchable, an instrument of a dark power. He believed that his devotion to Satan protected him from capture and empowered his heinous acts. This delusion granted him a terrifying confidence, allowing him to act with increasing boldness. He felt a perverse sense of accomplishment and exhilaration from the chaos he inflicted upon society. His actions were not just criminal, they were a twisted form of worship, a macabre ritual performed under the Southern California moon, cementing his image as a truly diabolical figure, detached from all human empathy. Amidst the darkness, there were moments of extraordinary luck and courage. Some victims survived the Night Stalker's brutal attacks, offering crucial eyewitness accounts to police. Others managed to escape entirely, fleeing their homes or waking just in time to scare him away. These survivors, though traumatized, provided vital clues about his appearance, his methods, and his terrifying presence. Their bravery, often in the face of unimaginable horror, was instrumental in building a composite sketch and ultimately narrowing the hunt. Each escape was a small victory against overwhelming odds, a testament to the human will to survive, even when confronted by pure evil in the dead of night. Despite his attempts to leave no trace, Ramirez began to make mistakes. Forensic investigators, painstakingly sifting through crime scenes, started to accumulate crucial evidence. Shoe prints, often distinctive Avia brand sneakers, were found at several locations. Most significantly, latent fingerprints were recovered from a stolen car linked to one of the attacks. These seemingly small pieces of evidence became monumental in the hunt. Each discarded cigarette, each footprint, each print left behind became a silent witness, slowly but surely painting a clearer picture of the elusive assailant. The science of forensics was quietly, meticulously closing in on the monster, one tiny, overlooked detail at a time. Armed with a growing number of eyewitness accounts, police commissioned a composite sketch of the Night Stalker. The resulting image, depicting a man with gaunt features, dark eyes, and distinctive curly hair, was broadcast widely across television and newspaper. This visual representation provided the public with their first tangible look at the monster who had terrorized them for months. It transformed the abstract fear into a concrete image, empowering citizens to actively participate in the hunt. The sketch was a powerful tool, a face to the name, and it marked a turning point in the investigation, bringing the hunt from the shadows into the harsh light of public scrutiny and recognition. Just as the pressure mounted in Southern California, Ramirez extended his reign of terror northward, striking in San Francisco. This move demonstrated his brazenness and his ability to travel relatively unnoticed, further amplifying the fear that no city was safe. The San Francisco attacks, though fewer, carried the same brutal hallmarks, solidifying the multi-jurisdictional nature of the case. It became clear that this was not just a regional threat but a statewide menace, prompting even greater urgency and cross-agency cooperation. His ability to evade capture for so long, even crossing city lines, made him seem almost invincible, widening the net of fear and demanding a broader response. The critical breakthrough came when the latent fingerprints recovered from a stolen car in Mission Viejo were run through the state's Automated Fingerprint Identification System, AFIS. This technology, relatively new at the time, cross-referenced the prints against existing criminal records. The system hit a match: Ricardo Leyva Munoz Ramirez, a known petty criminal with a juvenile record. This single piece of evidence irrevocably linked the terrifying Night Stalker to a real person, providing investigators with an identity and a name. It was the moment the faceless monster gained a face, and the hunt could finally focus on a specific individual, transforming the investigation from abstract to concrete. On August 29, 1985, authorities publicly identified Richard Ramirez as the Night Stalker, releasing his name and photograph to an anxious public. The image that flashed across television screens and newspaper front pages was eerily similar to the composite sketch, confirming the worst fears. This public identification unleashed a massive manhunt. Every citizen became an amateur detective, scanning faces in crowds, constantly vigilant. The sense of dread now had a focal point, a specific face to associate with the terror. The anonymity that had been Ramirez's greatest weapon was stripped away, turning the hunted into the hunted, a dramatic shift in the cat-and-mouse game. With Ramirez's identity revealed, the public became an active participant in the manhunt. Flyers with his face were distributed everywhere, and news reports urged vigilance. People, who had spent months living in fear, were now empowered to look for the man who had terrorized them. This unprecedented level of public involvement turned the tables on the Night Stalker. He could no longer rely on anonymity. Every face in a crowd, every passerby, was a potential identifier. The fear shifted from being terrorized by an unknown entity to actively seeking out a known threat, a powerful testament to collective community action against a common enemy, showing courage amidst pervasive dread. On August 30, 1985, the day after his identity was released, Ramirez was spotted. He had taken a bus from Tucson, Arizona, and arrived in Los Angeles, likely unaware that his face was plastered across every news outlet. He attempted to steal a car in the East Los Angeles neighborhood of Boyle Heights. The owner, recognizing his face from the news, immediately raised the alarm. A frantic chase ensued as Ramirez, now desperate and disoriented, tried to evade capture. The streets that once offered him refuge now swarmed with citizens aware of his monstrous deeds, turning his hunting ground into his trap. The net was closing rapidly and irreversibly. Ramirez's desperate flight led him deeper into the residential streets of East Los Angeles. He ran from one street to another, attempting to carjack several vehicles, but each time, alert citizens recognized him. The shouts of El Matador and Asesino echoed through the neighborhood as residents, galvanized by months of fear and the recent revelation of his identity, pursued him relentlessly. Cornered and beaten, he eventually stumbled into a group of residents who apprehended him, holding him down until police arrived. It was a dramatic and fitting end to his reign of terror, brought down not by police alone, but by the very community he had sought to terrorize. The capture of Richard Ramirez stands as one of the most remarkable instances of a citizen's arrest in modern American history. The residents of East Los Angeles, many of whom were of Mexican and Latino heritage, reacted not with fear, but with collective defiance. They recognized their tormentor and refused to let him escape. Their courageous actions brought an end to a nightmare that had paralyzed Southern California for months. This moment symbolized the community's refusal to be victims, transforming their fear into collective action and justice. It was a raw, visceral moment of triumph for ordinary people against an extraordinary evil, embodying the power of a united populace. The capture of Richard Ramirez brought an immediate and profound sense of relief to Southern California. The panic that had gripped the region for months dissipated almost instantly. People could finally sleep soundly, open their windows, and walk their streets without the constant dread of the Night Stalker. News of his apprehension dominated headlines, bringing closure to a terrifying chapter. Though the wounds of the victims and their families would never fully heal, the knowledge that the monster was off the streets allowed communities to begin the slow process of recovery. It was a collective exhale, a moment of profound gratitude and a tangible victory for law enforcement and citizens alike. Richard Ramirez's trial, which began in July 1988, was a spectacle that gripped the nation. His defiant and often bizarre behavior in the courtroom made headlines daily. He would often flash pentagrams drawn on his hand, smile menacingly, and wear dark sunglasses, clearly reveling in the attention. The courtroom became a circus, attracting satanic groupies and true crime enthusiasts. His lack of remorse and continued embrace of his dark ideology further solidified his image as a truly evil figure. The trial was not just about justice, it was a public confrontation with the face of evil, a macabre performance played out on the national stage. During the trial, survivors and family members of the victims bravely testified, recounting the horrific details of Ramirez's atrocities. Their poignant and often tearful testimonies brought the human cost of his crimes into stark relief. The raw emotion in the courtroom served as a powerful counterpoint to Ramirez's cold indifference, reminding everyone of the profound suffering he inflicted. These moments were not just about providing evidence, they were about giving a voice to those whose lives were forever altered, seeking justice and a measure of closure in the face of unimaginable loss. Their courage etched the true horror of the Night Stalker's actions into the public consciousness. After a grueling 15-month trial, one of the longest and most expensive in California history, the jury delivered its verdict on September 20, 1989. Richard Ramirez was found guilty on all 13 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, 11 counts of sexual assault, and 14 counts of burglary. The sheer number and gravity of his convictions underscored the immense scope of his depravity. The verdict brought a sense of vindication for the victims and their families, a confirmation that justice, however belated, had finally been served against the man who had brought so much devastation. The decision was definitive, leaving no doubt about his guilt. On November 7, 1989, Richard Ramirez was sentenced to death in the gas chamber. Upon hearing his sentence, Ramirez remained defiant, uttering chilling words that underscored his unrepentant nature. He declared, "I am beyond good and evil. I am the Night Stalker. You don't understand me. You are not capable of it. I am Lucifer." His final words in court were a stark reminder of the depth of his delusion and his unwavering commitment to his dark ideology. Even facing the ultimate penalty, he chose to embrace his monstrous identity, leaving no room for regret or humanity, cementing his image as one of history's most chilling figures. Richard Ramirez spent the remainder of his life on death row at San Quentin State Prison, awaiting execution. His time there was marked by continued defiance and bizarre behavior. He corresponded with followers, and even married one of them in 1996. Despite numerous appeals, his convictions and death sentence were consistently upheld. His presence on death row served as a constant reminder of the terror he had inflicted and the justice that had been sought. He became a macabre figure of fascination for some, and a symbol of enduring pain for the victims' families, a stark representation of evil confined but never forgotten within the prison walls. The Night Stalker's crimes left an indelible mark on Southern California and beyond. His reign of terror permanently changed how people viewed home security and personal safety. The culture of casually leaving doors and windows unlocked vanished, replaced by a heightened sense of vigilance. His story became a cautionary tale, a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk even in the brightest places. The psychological scars ran deep, impacting a generation. The very idea of the safe home was irrevocably altered, fostering a legacy of caution and awareness that persists to this day, a chilling testament to one man's ability to forever change a societal mindset. On June 7, 2013, after nearly 24 years on death row, Richard Ramirez died at the age of 53. His cause of death was complications from B-cell lymphoma, a type of blood cancer. He avoided execution by the state, passing away from natural causes. His death closed a chapter for many, bringing a finality to the Night Stalker saga, yet it could never fully erase the pain and trauma he inflicted. While the physical threat was gone, the memories of his brutality and the fear he inspired continue to resonate, a grim reminder of the summer of terror that gripped a Golden State, and the ultimate, quiet end of a monstrous life. The case of Richard Ramirez remains a chilling study in human depravity. It highlights the disturbing reality of individuals who operate beyond the bounds of empathy and morality. While experts continue to debate the complex interplay of genetics, environment, and psychology that can lead to such heinous acts, Ramirez's story serves as a stark reminder of the fragile line between order and chaos. Understanding these dark narratives isn't about glorifying evil, but about striving to comprehend the forces that can unleash such terror, in hopes of better protecting society and recognizing the warning signs that may manifest in future predators. It's a somber lesson in human nature's extremes. Ultimately, the story of Richard Ramirez is not about him, but about the lives he shattered and the fear he instilled. It's about remembering the victims, Dale Okazaki, Silenu, Max, and Lela Needing, and all the others whose lives were tragically cut short or forever scarred. Their names deserve to be spoken, their stories to be remembered, not overshadowed by the infamy of their killer. By focusing on the human cost, we honor their memory and acknowledge the profound impact of senseless violence. Their enduring legacy is a call for vigilance, for compassion, and for the unwavering pursuit of justice against those who seek to extinguish the light of human dignity. The shadow of the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, may have lifted from Los Angeles, but its imprint remains. The lessons learned from that terrifying summer of 1985 continue to shape communities and influence public awareness. While the monster is gone, the vigilance born of his crimes persists. His story serves as a stark reminder that true evil can exist, and that community resolve, coupled with diligent law enforcement, is essential in facing such darkness. We must never forget the fear, the courage, and the lives lost, ensuring that the legacy of this dark chapter remains a beacon for safety and justice in a world that, despite its advancements, must always remain alert to the lurking shadows.